1994, and I am at the age of 57. And it's a kind of old age to be starting to enter into the gay scene again. And I have to say that my thinking around going to gay bars and clubs was, well, who the heck would be interested in me at 57? So it took quite a lot of courage to actually enter that world that I'd never been really fully part of, but of course in my youth had obviously gone to gay bars. But to do it at 57 was really a big step. I was staying with friends of mine in Brighton. For those of you who know Brighton, you know that it's the second largest gay place to be living in England. And so I guess I'd chosen the right place to come back to meet someone. One of the things that I had thought about doing when I lived in the foundation was I thought I'd like to work with HIV and AIDS people. I wasn't quite sure how that would be or how I could get into that training for that, but the powers that be somehow had a different way of me to work with HIV and AIDS people. And one of the first people that I met in one of the gay bars was a young man, and he actually had HIV. So I thought, well, this is quite interesting. How is this going to be? And so I started a small relationship with this guy, and I don't think he was really serious about having an affair with me, but for me it was a starting point for finding a way to be with another person. And yeah, it was definitely a learning curve. This went on for I guess a month or so, and in the end obviously it didn't really go anywhere, and apart from me learning what it was like to be with someone who had HIV. Yeah, and then so I then carried on going to some of the gay bars and trying to see if I could meet anyone. And then one evening I was in one of the big clubs in Brighton, and it's called the Revenge. And I saw across the room a group of young men who I found very attractive, and one guy in particular who I thought was really kind of hot. And so I looked at him and he kind of looked at me, and I thought, well, you know, this isn't going to go anywhere. And I had on not an aftershave, but something that the Body Shop made. It was a lavender kind of scented thing. No, I lie. It was rose oil. And this guy came over and said, you know, what's that smell? I kind of like that. And so I said, oh, well, you know, it's rose oil. And we started to chat, and he'd had quite a lot to drink, so I'm not sure whether he really saw me. But anyhow, we got on really well, and the people I was staying with in Brighton were away, and so I asked this guy to come back with me. It turned out that this person was Irish, and his name is Kieran. And so he came back, and I've discovered that he worked for an airline and was due the next day to go off to Jamaica for a week. So I thought, oh well, you know, this isn't going to go anywhere. And I talked a bit about my life in Findhorn Foundation, and he kind of thought this was all a bit odd and thought that I was some sort of witch or something. Anyhow, he kept asking me all sorts of questions, which was quite difficult for me to answer, because unless you have an understanding of what the spiritual community is about, I guess you can interpret all sorts of strange ways that it might be. Anyhow, the next morning here we got up, and one of the things that happened to me the night previous was that I couldn't stop crying. I think it was a build-up of not having been with anyone for such a long time, and so this sort of being close with someone seemed to bring out a lot of real emotions for me. I think Kieran thought I was really, really strange, and so I thought I'd really blown this meeting of this person. But anyhow, in the morning he said, okay, well, I'm going to Jamaica, and you know, I hope that we're going to see each other again. I said, oh yeah, that would be great. So off he went, and yeah, and so for the next week I was kind of thinking, oh, you know, is this really going to go anywhere or not? And then after a week he came back, and he rang me, and we arranged to meet, and really from then on it seemed to me that this was going to be the person I was going to be sharing certainly a part of my life with. And so I stepped into this, opening up to having another relationship with another man, and with all that that might bring forth. Anyhow, so we carried on seeing each other, and finally we decided that we would rent a flat together. And so he moved down to Brighton, because he had been living near Gatwick Airport, and we moved down into Brighton and had this very nice flat, which I'll put some photographs of, and stayed in there for a short period of time, really, for just a few months. And then it seemed clear that we were going to be staying together, so we then started to look around to see about buying somewhere together. And of course I had to wait until the big house in Wales was sold, and eventually that house sold in the summer of '94, and so I would then had some money, and decided that I would put a chunk of this money into buying a place together with Kieran. And the idea was that I'd put the down payment on this flat, and then he would pay the mortgage on it, because we didn't have to have a very big mortgage, so it probably ended up by him having to pay the same amount that he would be paying for a flat that he would be renting anyhow. So exciting times, and moving into a new place with a new man. And I'm going to talk more about how that developed and how our relationships has developed. And here I am 13 years later in this relationship with this great guy. And I'll share more about that and how our lives have been together and are travelling together in the next episode. So, bye for now.